What if I told you that the flow of time, the sensation you're experiencing right now of moments passing, of the present moving from past to future, is completely fabricated by your brain? What if time doesn't actually flow at all, but you're hardwired to perceive it that way, and this creates one of the deepest mysteries in all of physics? And what if the fact that time can slow down, which we've proven experimentally, makes the mystery even more profound, even more impossible to reconcile with your everyday experience? Stay with me, because I'm about to explain why physicists know with absolute certainty that time is relative, that it slows down for moving objects, that different observers experience different amounts of time passing, and yet none of us can explain why you feel time flowing, why you have the sensation of moving from past to future, why now feels so real even though physics says it shouldn't exist. This is the deepest problem at the intersection of physics and consciousness, and I spent the last years of my life obsessing over it. Never solved it, but I'm going to show you exactly why it's so baffling, so troubling, so impossible to explain with current physics. My name is Albert Einstein, and I destroyed absolute time. I showed that time is not universal, not the same for everyone, not ticking away uniformly everywhere in the universe. Time is relative. It slows down when you move fast. It slows down in strong gravitational fields. Different observers experience different amounts of time passing. This is proven, experimentally verified thousands of times. Time dilation is real. And yet, despite this, you feel time flowing. You feel yourself moving through time at a steady rate, 1 second per second, always, constantly. This feeling is so strong, so undeniable, that it forms the basis of your entire experience of reality. But here's the problem. If time is relative, if it slows down and speeds up, if different people experience different amounts of it passing, then what is this flow you're feeling? What is it flowing relative to? Is there some absolute time underlying the relative time? No, we've ruled that out. Is the flow an illusion? Probably. But then why does it feel so real? What creates the sensation, and why does the sensation feel uniform, even though time itself is not uniform? These questions haunted me, and they should haunt you too, because they cut to the heart of what it means to be conscious, to experience reality, to exist in time.
Let me start with what we know, what physics can tell us with certainty. Time is relative. This is special relativity. If you move at high speed, time passes more slowly for you than for someone standing still. Not in your experience. In your experience, you feel time passing normally, 1 second per second. But compared to the outside world, compared to observers who are stationary, your time has slowed down. And this is measurable. We've done it. Put atomic clocks on airplanes, flown them around the world, compared them to identical clocks that stayed on the ground, and the flying clocks showed less elapsed time. They experienced less time because they were moving. This is real. This happens. Time literally slows down when you move fast, and it also slows down in gravitational fields. Strong gravity slows time. If you're deep in a gravitational well, close to a massive object, time passes more slowly for you than for someone far away in weak gravity. We see this with GPS satellites. They're high above Earth in weaker gravity, so time passes faster for them than for us on the surface. We have to correct for this, adjust the satellite clocks to account for the time dilation. Otherwise, GPS wouldn't work, would be off by kilometers. So time is not absolute, not universal. It depends on motion, on gravity, on your reference frame. But here's what's strange. Even though time is relative, even though it slows down and speeds up, You always feel it flowing at the same rate. You never feel time slowing down, never feel it speeding up. Whether you're sitting still or moving at high speed, whether you're on Earth's surface or on a mountaintop, you feel time passing at 1 second per second, uniformly, constantly. Your subjective experience of time's flow doesn't change, even though time itself is changing. How is this possible? Why doesn't your subjective experience match the objective reality? When you're moving at high speed and your time is slowed down relative to the outside world, why don't you feel it? Why don't you experience time moving in slow motion? The answer is that all your processes slow down together. Your neurons fire more slowly. Your thoughts proceed more slowly. Your heartbeat slows. Your metabolism slows. Everything. So, from your internal perspective, everything seems normal. 1 second of your slowed down time still feels like 1 second to you, because you're measuring it with your slowed down processes, your slowed down neurons. There's no external reference, no absolute clock you can compare to. So, you feel time passing normally, even though to an outside observer, your time has slowed down. This is deeply strange. It means your subjective experience of time is always the same, always uniform, always flowing at 1 second per second. But objective time, measured time, varies, speeds up and slows down depending on conditions. There's a disconnect, a gap between how time feels and how time is.
And this creates a problem, a deep problem. If your subjective experience is always uniform, always flowing at the same rate, then what is that flow? What is that rate? 1 second per second relative to what? In Newtonian physics, before relativity, the answer was simple. Time flows at 1 second per second relative to absolute time, the universal clock, the background against which everything happens. But relativity destroyed absolute time, showed it doesn't exist. There's no universal clock, no background time, only relative time, different for different observers. So what is the flow relative to? What is the 1 second per second measuring? I don't know. No one knows. This is the mystery. The feeling of time flowing, the sensation of moving from past to future at a steady rate, it has no obvious physical basis, no clear explanation in terms of relativity or any other physics we understand. It's a feature of consciousness, of subjective experience. But we don't understand consciousness, don't know how it works, don't know how it relates to physics. So we're stuck. We know time is relative, we know the flow is subjective, but we can't explain the flow, can't account for it, can't reconcile the subjective uniformity with the objective variability. This is the hard problem of time, and it's unsolved.
Let me tell you about a thought experiment I developed in my final years. Imagine two twins. One stays on Earth, the other travels to a distant star at near light speed, then returns. This is the famous twin paradox. When they reunite, the traveling twin has aged less, has experienced less time. Maybe 10 years for the traveler, 50 years for the earthbound twin. This is real. This happens. Time dilation. Now ask yourself, during the journey, what did the traveling twin experience? Did time feel slower for him? Did he experience time passing in slow motion? No. From his perspective, time felt normal, flowed at 1 second per second. He had thoughts, made decisions, experienced boredom, excitement, all the normal subjective states, and they felt normal. Time felt like it was passing normally, but objectively, less time passed for him than for his brother. So there's a disconnect. The subjective experience was uniform, but the objective reality was different. Less time actually elapsed. How do we reconcile this? How do we explain that both things are true simultaneously? That time felt normal but was objectively slowed? I struggled with this, tried to understand what it means, and I realized the problem is consciousness. The problem is that subjective experience doesn't map cleanly onto physical time. Consciousness creates its own time, its own flow, its own sense of passage, and that subjective time is always uniform, always feels the same. But it's not the same as physical time. Physical time is relative, variable, dependent on conditions. Subjective time is absolute, uniform, always flowing at 1 second per second. We have two times, objective and subjective, and they don't match, and we don't understand why.
This is where physics meets consciousness, where the hard problem of time meets the hard problem of consciousness, and we're lost. We don't have the tools, don't have the framework, don't have a way to bridge the gap between objective physical descriptions and subjective experiential descriptions. We can describe time dilation mathematically, can predict it, can measure it, but we can't explain why you feel time flowing uniformly, even when it's not. Can't explain what that feeling is, where it comes from, what creates it. This is beyond current physics, beyond current neuroscience, beyond current philosophy. We need something new, some way of understanding consciousness and its relationship to time. But we don't have it, and I died without finding it. This was my final obsession, my unsolved mystery, the thing that kept me up at night in my 70s. Knowing that time is relative, but feeling it flow. Knowing there's a disconnect, but not understanding how to resolve it, and passing that mystery on to you, to future generations, hoping someone, someday, will figure it out. Let me tell you about another aspect of this problem, the arrow of time. Time feels like it has a direction. You move from past to future, never the reverse. Memories point backward, anticipation points forward, cause precedes effect, entropy increases, disorder grows. Everything points in one direction, from past to future. This is the arrow of time, and you feel it strongly, undeniably. But here's the problem. The fundamental laws of physics don't have an arrow. They're time-symmetric. They work the same, forward and backward. If you run the equations in reverse, they're still valid, still work. So where does the arrow come from? Why do you feel time flowing in one direction if the laws themselves are symmetric? This is another mystery, another gap between subjective experience and physical reality. And it's related to the flow problem, because the feeling of flow includes directionality. You don't just feel time passing, you feel it passing in a specific direction, from past to future, always, never the reverse. But physics doesn't explain this, doesn't account for it. The arrow seems to emerge from somewhere else, from cosmology perhaps, from the low entropy initial state of the universe, from thermodynamics, from the increase of entropy. But even that doesn't fully explain it, doesn't explain why consciousness experiences it as flow, as movement, as progression from one moment to the next.
And here's where it gets even stranger. If time doesn't actually flow, if the block universe is real and all moments exist equally, then the feeling of flow is an illusion, a trick of consciousness. But what kind of trick? How does consciousness create the illusion of flow from a static structure? Imagine a movie reel. All the frames exist simultaneously. The reel is static, complete. But when you watch the movie, you experience flow, movement, narrative, story. The projector creates the experience of time passing by showing you one frame at a time. Is consciousness like a projector, moving through the static structure of spacetime, illuminating one moment at a time, creating the experience of flow? Maybe. But then what is the projector? What is the mechanism? What in consciousness creates the sequential experience? We don't know, can't even begin to answer, because we don't understand consciousness, don't know what it is, how it works, how it relates to the physical brain, let alone how it creates the experience of time. So we're stuck with the mystery, the feeling of flow, unexplained, unaccounted for, real but not understood. Now let me ask you something, because I want to know how you experience time. Does time feel like it flows for you? Does it feel uniform, always the same rate? Or does it sometimes feel faster or slower? When you're bored, does time drag? When you're engaged, does it fly? These subjective variations, are they the same as time dilation? No, they're psychological, based on attention and memory. But they're interesting because they show that subjective time is not perfectly uniform. It varies based on mental state, based on what you're doing, how you're feeling. So maybe subjective time is more flexible than I thought, more variable. And maybe that flexibility is a clue, a hint at how consciousness creates the experience of time. I don't know, but I'm curious. So leave a comment. Tell me how you experience time, whether it feels uniform or variable, whether you've ever had moments where time felt different, faster or slower or stranger. Because these subjective reports, they're data, they're evidence, and maybe if we collect enough of them, maybe if we understand the phenomenology better, we'll start to see patterns, start to understand what creates the experience of flow, what makes time feel the way it does. So share your experience. Let's explore this together.
Let me tell you about a conversation I had with a neuroscientist near the end of my life. This was in the 1950s. We were discussing time perception, how the brain creates the experience of time. And he told me something fascinating. The brain doesn't experience the present moment directly. It experiences a delayed reconstruction. Everything you see, hear, feel, it all happened in the past, milliseconds ago. The light had to travel, the signals had to process. By the time you're conscious of something, it's already in the past. But your brain doesn't present it that way. Your brain smooths everything out, synchronizes different sensory inputs that arrive at different times, creates a coherent present moment, even though that moment is actually a reconstruction of several different past moments. So the now you experience is not real, not actual. It's a fabrication, a useful fiction your brain creates to help you navigate reality. This blew my mind, because it meant that the present moment, the thing that feels most real, most immediate, most undeniable, is an illusion, a construct. And if the present is an illusion, what about the flow? Is that an illusion too? Is time not really flowing? Is your brain just creating that experience, making you feel like you're moving from moment to moment, when really you're not moving at all? You're just existing as a four-dimensional structure, and consciousness is creating the illusion of sequential experience. Maybe, probably, but we don't know how, don't know what mechanism creates the illusion, don't know why consciousness works this way.
And this is frustrating, because we've made so much progress in physics. We understand space-time, understand relativity, understand time dilation, but we don't understand the most basic aspect of our experience of time, the feeling of it flowing, the sensation of moving from past to future. This is a fundamental gap, a hole in our understanding, And it shows that physics alone is not enough. We need to understand consciousness, need to bridge the gap between objective physical descriptions and subjective experiential descriptions. And we haven't done that, haven't even come close. Consciousness remains a mystery, and as long as it remains a mystery, the flow of time will remain a mystery, because the flow is not a feature of space-time, it's a feature of consciousness, of how conscious beings experience space-time. And without understanding consciousness, we can't understand the flow, can't explain why you feel time passing, even though physics says time is just another dimension, static, not flowing, not passing, just there, part of the structure. Let me tell you what I think, though I can't prove this. I think the flow of time is related to memory and anticipation, to the fact that you remember the past, but not the future. You have memories pointing backward, knowledge of what was, but you don't have memories pointing forward, no knowledge of what will be. This asymmetry creates the experience of direction, of moving from known past to unknown future. And the feeling of flow is your consciousness updating moment by moment, adding new experiences to memory, moving from unknown to known, from potential to actual. This creates the sensation of progression, of movement, of time flowing. But this is just speculation, just an idea, not proven, not tested, not even fully developed, just my intuition about what might be creating the experience. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the flow has nothing to do with memory. Maybe it's something else entirely, some feature of consciousness we don't understand at all. Some quantum process in the brain, some emergent property of neural networks, some connection to space-time we haven't discovered. I don't know, and that's the honest answer. I don't know. No one knows. This is unsolved.
Let me tell you why this matters, why you should care about this mystery. It matters because it's about your most basic experience of reality. The feeling of existing in time, of being present, of moving from moment to moment. If that feeling is an illusion, if it doesn't correspond to anything real in physics, then what does that say about your other experiences? What else might be illusory? What else might be a construct of consciousness rather than a feature of reality? This opens up deep questions about the relationship between experience and reality, about whether we can trust our intuitions, about what it means to know something. If time doesn't flow, but you feel it flowing, then your direct experience is misleading you, lying to you, giving you a false picture of reality. And if that's true about time, what else might it be true about? Space? Matter? Causation? The self? Maybe everything you experience is a construct, a model, a useful fiction your brain creates to help you survive, but not truth, not reality, just appearance. This is disturbing, unsettling, challenges everything. And maybe that's why most people don't think about it, don't want to face it, prefer to trust their experience, trust the flow. Live as if time really does pass, really does move, really is what it feels like. And that's fine, that's practical, but it's not truth. Truth is stranger, more mysterious, more troubling than comfortable intuition suggests.
So what should you do with this knowledge? How should you live knowing that time is relative but feels absolute? That time slows down but you never feel it? That flow is probably an illusion but an undeniable one? I think you should hold your experience lightly. Recognize that what you feel is real as experience, but not necessarily real as physics. The flow feels real, but physics says the block universe is real. Both are true in their domains, subjective and objective, experiential and physical, and they don't match, and that's okay. You don't need to resolve the contradiction, you just need to recognize it, be aware of it, understand that reality is stranger than experience suggests, that consciousness creates a picture that doesn't match the physics, and live with that tension, that mystery, that gap between how things feel and how things are. This is the human condition, experiencing a universe we don't fully understand through a consciousness we don't understand at all. Feeling time flow even though it doesn't, feeling present even though there's no universal present, feeling like you're moving even though you're a static structure in spacetime, all of it contradictory, all of it mysterious, all of it real in some sense, and none of it fully explained. That's where we are. That's what I'm leaving you with. Not answers, but deeper questions. Not solutions, but clearer understanding of the mystery. Time is relative, flow is subjective, and we don't know how to reconcile them. That's the truth. Uncomfortable, incomplete, but true. Hit subscribe to keep exploring the deepest mysteries at the edge of physics and consciousness.